there, Internet. So when I was in college, I had to take this class called English 301. It was standard operating procedure for all English majors at my school, and it was basically a literary theory class. It was crazy hard. I had to work really hard to get a good grade in that class, but the thing that made this class even more difficult for me was the fact that my teacher constantly used Jane Eyre as his example. Whenever we were talking about different literary theories, according to him, most of them could be seen in Jane Eyre. The problem for me was that I'd never read Jane Eyre, but he operated under the assumption that it was one of those books that every English major, either in class or on their own, had read in high school. So in addition to all of the reading I had to do for him, I had to read this book. That particular instance was one of the first, but certainly not the last time, I felt like a bad English major. So many books that people had just assumed I knew or had an understanding of or had read, and actually I hadn't gotten to a lot of them. And still to this day there are so many books that I feel are like standard for English majors or just reading enthusiasts or people who became English teachers that I haven't read. I think the only thing I've ever read by Charles Dickens was A Christmas Carol. Maybe, I'm not even sure on that. I have never read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I've never read Catch-22. I've never read anything by Roald Dahl. And when I set out to make this video, it was going to be about how I was going to really make more of an effort this year to read classics like those. And then I looked at my list and realized it was a list of white men. That's not to say they didn't write good books. There's a reason they have stood the test of time. Or is the reason that they've stood the test of time because other voices weren't being heard, or we weren't giving them the full attention that they deserved? And that's when I decided to tweak my resolution a little bit. Scrolling through my Goodreads account, I was sort of embarrassed to realize how many of the books that I've either read or want to read are by white people. As a white person, it's understandable that I maybe gravitate toward white authors, but at the same time, it's awful that I feel this way because I have this opportunity. I have white privilege, and this is one of the many cases where I'm so lucky that when I go to bookstores or just read reviews or say, oh, I want to read that and that and that, I don't even have to generally think twice about the fact that the writer and I are probably going to have that in common. We're going to have a common race. And there's nothing wrong with reading white authors, but the fact that I need to be much more conscious of what I'm reading and to widen my scope. There's so much out there, and I should know this. I should know this better than anyone. In college, yes, I had a lot of classes where the majority of books we read were probably by dead white men. But that's not to say all of them were. I took an entire class dedicated to Toni Morrison. I had, at that point, read all of Toni Morrison's published works. I took a class on Black women writers, which I thought was fascinating. It was one of my favorite courses. I took another class on imaginative women's literature, and if you go to the university right now and have a chance to take that class with Iris Barron, do it. It's awesome. It was maybe one of my favorite classes that I ever took. And those kinds of classes exposed me to so many different writers from different cultures and perspectives and experiences. And what happened after I left school? Enough is enough. It's time to practice what I preach. I'm constantly telling my kids to read widely, and I'm constantly making an effort when I order books from my school library that they are a wide range and they cover all realms of experiences. And my own reading practices need to reflect that as well. By the end of 2016, I'm hoping to read The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Junot Diaz, The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan, Americana by, I don't want to pronounce her name wrong, so here, and God Help the Child by Toni Morrison. And just in general, even if I don't hit maybe those 5, just really making a better effort to widen my scope. The reason we have so many books and so many voices is because there's something to be said and there's something to be heard, and we can all learn from each other. So maybe I wasn't such a bad English major, but I can certainly do a better job being a librarian and English teacher. All of my usual links are down below. Comments are always welcome, and that's it for me for now. Take care. Bye! I'm currently reading Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri, and if you like what you've seen here today, please like and please subscribe for more.